Well, good afternoon, everyone. Back for another little vlog today. I was had other, meetings and appointments and all that on Friday, so didn't get a chance to vlog on Friday. But we're back today. Today we're going to talk a little bit about culture. I've been hitting on it, kind of. I hit it on yesterday. I preached at my church yesterday, and I kind of hit on it. We're going to talk about that, and we may talk about multiple parts, but I'm going to try to keep it short and sweet. Today, culture is something that we're dealing with a lot now. Culture is one of those things where it's kind of what people do, and it's something that, and I don't have the definition on top of my head here, but cultures are like different ethnicities. It's almost the same thing. So where you have different ethnicities, you normally have different types of cultures. So for instance, folks in Africa have a different culture, folks in Europe have a different culture, folks in Asia have a different culture, the indigenous have different cultures, so on. But kind of what I want to focus on today when it deals with culture is not necessarily an ethnic culture, but more of a social culture. Because we're in a culture war right now. We're in a culture war for morality and standards and ethics and religion and all kinds of stuff that we're fighting against. So you kind of have two schools of thought here. You have the schools of thought that, basically anything goes, and then you have the other school of thought where, it doesn't. Right now in this country, you have a culture war that's dealing with the conservative thought, against the leftist, socialist, communist thought. There's always been a religious culture war, Christians against Satanists. That's always been a culture war for eons and always will be. But mainly what we're talking about is a culture war between conservative thought and much more leftist thought. Maybe even liberal thought, depending on what type of a liberal you are. But that's what's going on, because what we have going on in our world today is just anything goes. And most normal folks don't agree with that, especially when it comes to children. We're allowing children to make decisions on what gender they want to be, whether they're allowed to have surgeries or not. Parents have no authority over their children. You have schools that are allowing people in drag to perform in front of them. This is what we're talking about, a culture war. Honestly, I don't agree with any of that. If you're a child, you have no rights. You don't have any rights until you're on your own, paying your bills. Literally. Okay? You're basically considered an adult when you turn 18, or in the military's case, you consider an adult. Your parents sign you in at 17 like they did me. I'm an adult because I'm living on my own, paying my own bills. Okay? But when you're a child, you have no rights. You have nothing that you can say. Your parents are taking care of you. That means they have all the rights, because you have no rights. You're a minor. Okay? And I'm not talking about abuse, so we're not even going to go that route. Okay? Because obviously there is such thing as child abuse. What I'm talking about is decision making. You're a minor. You don't have decision making powers. Your parents do. So I don't understand why society wants to continuously bring down the age of where they feel that you can make decisions. No, you don't make decisions until you're out on your own. Okay, you don't make decisions, when your parents are paying all the bills, paying all your clothes, keeping a roof over your head, and food in the refrigerator. You have no decision-making power. Your parents do. That's why we have parents. Parents raise their children in the way they want to raise them. And that means that they have the power to make the decisions over their children because they're the ones raising their children. And vice versa when their children become adults and start having kids of their own. So we're in a culture war right now. We're in a culture war for how this, and I can only talk about the country that I live in, about the country that we live in. And are we going to continuously allow people to do anything they want to do, allow anything to happen to anyone, including children, and we just sit by and don't do nothing? Are we going to allow the minority to run the majority? That's not how it works. The minority does not run the majority. This is a country of majority rules. And I would wager most countries are that way. That's how we vote. The majority vote, and if the majority win, then the majority gets their candidate. Not the other way around. That's not how it works. But we're in a culture now where the minority is running the majority. And it's our fault as the majority. We're allowing it to happen because we're letting minority run the majority. That's not the way it's supposed to be. That's not the way it's supposed to be. And this is part of a problem. And we see this happening with the LGBTQ minority. We're seeing this with racial and ethnic minorities. And again, it's not about them not having the rights to do what they need to do and protections. That's not what I'm talking about. What they've done is taken it is a step further, and they have pushed their agendas on the majority and are telling them they need to accept it or else. That's what we're talking about here. Look, I ain't got no problem. You can live whatever you want to. This is a country that allows you to live whatever you want to live. That's fine. Handle your business. Do what you do. But don't push it on me. If I don't agree with it, then I just don't agree with it. It ain't got nothing to do with you. It ain't stopping you from doing whatever you want to do unless we vote on it, unless it becomes a law, unless we make like I said, a law or whatever, and the majority agree that they want a particular law passed, then the minority has nothing they can say about it because it's been passed. Now, that's not to say they don't have protection. They do. But if the majority of people vote a certain way that doesn't agree with the minority, oh well, then guess what? You lobby to become the majority so that you can reverse it. That's how that works. But when stuff is being passed against the majority, then we have problems. And when they're forcing you to accept it, regardless, we have problems. But the real problem this is the real problem that we're having with culture, is that the majority is allowing the minority to run this country. Therein lies the real problem. That's the real problem. That we're too sad and too afraid to fight, and so we're allowing the minority to run the majority, and that's backwards. That's not how it's supposed to be. People already have a false sense that we're a democracy. We're not. We've never been one. We're a republic. We're a republic. We're not a democracy. Okay? That's a falsehood. That's a lie. We don't have a direct democracy. We are a republic. We have democratic values, but we are not a democracy. We are a republic, meaning we have representation. That our country runs off of representation. The people vote for representation in our government. That's how our government runs. Does it always work? No. Is it a perfect system? No. Is it now corrupt? Yes. But that doesn't mean we need to go to the other extreme, which is socialism and communism. It has been proven in history. I don't care what people tell you, they are lying to you. Communism and socialism has never worked in the history of the world. Never worked. It failed in Russia. It's failing in China, because China doesn't have a true socialism or communist country. If you like what you see in North Korea, okay, then go there. But communism and socialism has failed. And everywhere it's been enacted, every country it's been enacted, it's failed. China doesn't have a socialist or communist country because it's too much free market. If they were, they wouldn't be trying to do the things they want, do the things that they're doing now to this country. They like their version of capitalism. They're not going back. And I would argue North Korea is not a socialist or a communist country. It's an authoritative country. One person's in charge, and that's it. What he says goes. So, socialism and communism, for real, doesn't really exist anymore in its true form. There are a couple hybrids. It doesn't work in this country. We want our freedom too much. Whatever freedom that is to you as an individual. But we're fighting a culture war. Socially and religiously, primarily. Socially, we're fighting a culture war, and we're fighting hard. Because you've got people who don't agree with the way the country is going now, and I don't agree with it either. And we're fighting against it. We're not fighting hard enough, but we're fighting against it. But it's difficult when the side that's running the country also controls the media. It's very difficult. Religiously, we're fighting a culture war, and we've been fighting it for centuries. We're fighting it for centuries. Fighting it for centuries. Fighting it for centuries. So, we may talk about this some more in more detail, but this is just kind of an overview kind of talk. And again, you don't have to agree with my outlook on the culture war, and that's okay. Everybody has a different view and a different opinion and different experiences. I'll be the first to admit I'm much more of the conservative line. I don't belong to a particular party. I just have much more conservative values than others, and that's okay. So my way of thinking is going to be different than your way of thinking. That's okay. Both parties are horrible, so there's really no winning. When you vote, you're just voting for the better of two evils, the one that matches your views better than the other. That's how it is, unfortunately. So it's really bad. And the war is only going to get worse. Persecution of Christians and Jews is only going to get worse. Why are Muslims being persecuted? Because they stand up for themselves. People don't mess with Muslims because they stand up for themselves. Why can't Christians? Why can't Jews? I would argue Jews are doing a better job than Christians, because the state of Israel doesn't put up with nothing. They defend themselves, as well any country should. But they get criticized for standing up for themselves when these other countries that are criticizing Israel will do the exact same thing. What's right is now wrong, and what's wrong is now right. Everything has gone backwards, and it makes absolutely no sense. Christians are persecuted because we allow them to do it. Because we allow them to do it. We just allow them to do it. We don't stand up for ourselves. And there's a way of standing up for yourself and fighting for yourself without getting ugly, nasty, and being like the world. Because we're supposed to be better than the world. But we're not. The majority of Christians aren't. The ones that are sanctified and all that stuff are becoming fewer and fewer and fewer. The church is too much like the world, and in doing so, we don't defend ourselves because we want to be like the world, and then the ones who do are getting drowned out because there's so few of us. The Christians are the way they are because we have allowed the world to do what they do to us. We've allowed it. The world is the way it is because the Christians are at fault. Saints are at fault. I separate the two because there's a difference. Unfortunately, the world has co-opted the word Christian, and so it don't mean what it used to mean. Well, no, I take that back. It means what it means, but people don't live what it means. And so they have cheapened the word Christian because most people don't live what it means. So hence you got to use another word and separate yourself. Culture war. It's a culture war. The fight between conservative and liberal, or conservative and leftist, or conservative and socialism, or conservative and communism is a culture war. It's a fight. It's a fight for what people believe in. And I would argue that the majority of people believe a certain way that the government doesn't. and the media doesn't, and Hollywood doesn't. But our problem is we don't go out there and vote the way we should. People complain about their government but don't go out and vote. It's part of culture war. You need to go out and vote. Yeah, we're all upset about, the way the government is on both sides of the aisle. On both sides of the aisle. We're upset about it. Upset about it. We're upset about it. But that doesn't mean you should not go out and do your due diligence and go out and vote. You've been given the right to vote, go do it before it's taken away from you. You need to vote, even if you don't like the candidates, you need to go and vote. Because compromise is essential for a working government. And unfortunately, we have no compromise in this government. That's why it's not running the way it's supposed to. Nobody's ever going to get everything they want. It's called compromise. And even though we don't compromise on the gospel, that doesn't apply when you're trying to keep a government running. Because you have different opinions, different ways of doing things, and you have to come together and compromise so the government can continue to function. Heck, even Christians have to come together and compromise sometimes because we got so many reformations and denominations we can't even agree on the gospel. So we have to compromise and agree on what we do agree on. And what we don't agree on, sometimes if it's just minor stuff, we can just roll with it. Major stuff, no. But a lot of it is minor stuff. So part of the culture war is not being able to compromise on both sides. Not voting in the numbers that we need to vote. Everybody should be voting. Don't use weather as an excuse. Don't use whatever it is as an excuse. Don't use that I have to have ID to vote. Yes, everybody should have ID to vote because you got to prove that who you are. So whoever doesn't agree with ID is an idiot and stupid. And you need to go live in another country that doesn't require it then. Because everybody should come with a form of ID to prove that you are who you say you are. That should be common sense. But again, this is part of the culture war. Common sense isn't common. And people don't believe in common sense. They just want to make up stuff. Okay? You have to show ID to get into a club, to buy alcohol, to buy a firearm, to do a lot of things. But yet when it comes to voting, all of a sudden everybody's against having a form of ID. Y'all are stupid. Y'all are idiots. It's ridiculous. I have to have ID to get into my building. You have to have ID to get into most federal facilities. You can't just walk into a place. You have to have ID to drive a car. I mean, come on, people. This is part of it. Okay? People need to go out and do their duty as a citizen and go vote. If you don't like something, go vote. Gather a bunch of folk that think like you, okay, and go vote. Create a lobby. Do something. But the only way you're going to make change is to actually go out there and enact change. You can't cry about the wrong person being in office if you didn't go out and vote. Shut up. Go somewhere else. Keep your mouth shut. You ain't got no right to say nothing. Go whine to yourself. You ain't got no right to say anything. Stop making excuses. Go do what you got to do. Start you a vlog. Start you a podcast. Make your opinions known. Let people know how you feel. Talk to your local politicians. Let them know how you feel. You can't win a culture war unless you're going to actually do some work. Stop letting the minority run the majority. It's backwards. Yes, minorities have protection. That's why we have laws. But majority rules. Just the way it is. Just the way it is. If you don't like something, do what they're doing with Bud Light. Protest it. They've lost millions. That's how you do stuff. If you don't like stuff, stop buying it. And then tell all your friends to stop buying it. And then they'll tell all their friends to stop buying it. And so on. That's how you get stuff to change. Hit that pocketbook. Hit them where it hurts. Money. That's how you enact change. Besides voting. That's how you enact change. Hit that pocketbook. Anheuser-Busch has lost millions over the Bud Light thing. And is continuing to lose money. It's a culture war. And we, the normal people, are losing it. We're losing it because of fringe movements, of fringe people, of minority groups are dictating to the majority how they should feel, how they should act, and how they should talk. That's wrong. We're in a culture war. If you want to happen what happened to Russia and what happened in China, then continue to do nothing. And that's exactly how we're going to be. Go out and do what you got to do. If you want change, go enact change. Go do something. Stop sitting around complaining about it and actually make something happen. Go out there and make your views and opinions known. Find people that have your same opinion views. Come together and fight. Fight for what you believe in. And the majority of this country is allowing the minority to run ragged over them, and it's wrong. And the majority needs to start fighting. I don't care where you live. I don't care what color you are. I don't care what education you got. I don't care. Go out there and do what you got to do. Because the culture war is real. It's real. And because of your do nothing, our country is the way it is right now. You could pray all you want to about the Lord, about you wanting the Lord to give you a job, a car, or a house, but if you don't do nothing to put some work into getting that car, house, then you're wasting your time. You're wasting your time. Don't ask God for a job if you ain't going out there applying for jobs. I'm not saying he can't do it, but he wants you to do some work. He wants to see that you're serious about getting a job. So go out there and apply for a job. Go out there and get a house. Save money to get a house. Save money to get a car. Do what you got to do. God doesn't bless lazy people. And the government ain't going to change if you're lazy. People are too lazy. Christians are going to continue to allow Satanists and everybody else to roll over them because they're lazy and won't fight back. People don't mess with Muslims because Muslims fight back. Whether you agree with that or don't, and I don't agree with their methods, but people don't mess with them. There's a way you can fight back without being like the world. There are many ways to fight back, to get your point across, to save your culture, to save your religious views, to save your free speech, to save your freedom of expression. To save your constitutional rights, you got to get into the middle of this culture war. No matter how big or small, you got to get into it. You can't but get into it. You can't just sit on the sidelines and say somebody else is going to do it. You got to fight. We're in a war, and everybody's got to fight. It doesn't have to be physical. It doesn't have to be with guns and knives. But more likely it's going to turn that way. But right now, you can still fight the culture war by voting, by protesting, by hitting people in their pocketbooks. That's how you make change right now. Unfortunately, eventually it probably will come to violence. Violence isn't the answer, but unfortunately, violence may be the only thing that's left. Might be the only thing that's left here pretty soon. So go out there and fight. Don't be lazy. Go out there and fight. Find a way where you can make change and go make change. Don't sit on the sidelines in this culture war. Go out and fight. That's all I got to say. We may touch on this again later on, but that's all I got to say right now. If you got any comments, leave them below. Be respectful. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. I want to hear from you. Share this with your friends. Maybe I've said something you agree with. Maybe we can come together and find common ground. Whatever it may be. Like and subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Until tomorrow, God bless you.